Steve Mignani here doing the junkyard crawl at Bernardston Auto Wrecking in Bernardston, Massachusetts with a 2006 Chrysler 300 Touring. Now, a few weeks ago, we did a video on a 2002 Chrysler 300M, which was the version of the 300 before this. That was the cab forward era. Dark days in my book. Front wheel drive, V6 only, no V8s. Well, that all changed for 2005 model year when the LX platform debuted. Now, if you like a modern Dodge Magnum, Challenger, Charger, or 300, the LX platform begins right here. This is a 2006, second year for the LX platform, and these are really cool cars. Again, these relaunched Chrysler's legacy of long hood, short deck, Hemi power as an option, and really brought Chrysler and Dodge back from death. Today's Hemi magic really began here. Without the Hemi program and these rear-wheel drive cars, I don't think Dodge would be around today. So they really hit it out of the park, but it all started right here. Now, I gotta say, back in 1998 or so, when these things are on the design table, this is a book right here about the history of the Chrysler 300. And this is a great look at not just the modern 300, but also 300s through the years, the 50s, the 60s, all the great stuff. But we get into the modern era. And this right here, this is a picture of when Chrysler was getting into looking back to rear-wheel drive. These are all vehicles from the late 90s, early 2000s. And again, these are show cars. Now, this here was designed by a guy named Joe Dehner. Now, Joe Dehner was the Daimler Chrysler senior design manager right here. And I'll talk about him in another second. But again, these cars led to the final production vehicles. Now, this right here is a great picture of a rear-wheel drive Chrysler 300 in the snow. Now, here's the thing. Rear-wheel drive cars are supposed to be terrible in the snow. And when Chrysler went wholesale away from front drive LX cars to these in 2005, how'd they do it? Well, the book tells us. After decades of touting the advantages of front-wheel drive cars in severe weather conditions, Chrysler explains that advancements in technology in the last 5 years enables a rear-wheel drive car, large car platform to perform with all-season capability. A combination of analog brake systems and all-speed traction control system were standard with the 3.5 and 5.7 liters and optional with the 2.7. Here's the thing here. It says, you can see the car here in the snow. The all-speed traction control enhanced vehicle mobility and prevented wheel spin when the 300 was accelerating on slippery surfaces like snow. Depending on road surface condition, an automatically activated winter mode feature selected a lower transmission upshift speed. It also provided a degree of directional stability control by using the wheel speed sensors. So in other words, the rear-wheel drive program really was saleable all over the country. But here's the thing. We're in Massachusetts where it snows a lot in the wintertime. So for markets like this, Chrysler had the all-wheel drive. Now on this one here, we'll see the front wheel has a spindle nut right there. On a rear-wheel drive, regular Chrysler 300, just a dust cap. Well, we go to the other side of that wheel and we will see the all-wheel drive mechanism. You can see right here the half shaft feeding power from the transfer case out to the wheel hub. And these all-wheel drive 300s have very specific upper and lower control arms. And even the knuckles, the cast iron here is very different from a rear-wheel drive car. And again, this stuff is specific to the all-wheel drive Magnum. Now the 300. Now this same system right here is still available today in the Dodge Charger and also on the Dodge Challenger GT. Yes, all-wheel drive on a Challenger, but again, only on the 6-cylinder GT. Now, something else that was really cool about the LX 300 is the hood, aluminum. You can see here from the accident damage right here, the bare white metal underneath it. And the beauty of that is that just like a 69.5 six-pack Roadrunner or Super B, it's really light. And one guy can pick this thing up and it's no big deal. But under the hood, well, here we have one of three possible engines. Now this one here is the 3.5 liter. This is the single overhead cam engine, 250 horsepower, the same basic engine that was also used in the LX platform, the front wheel drive stuff, the cab forward cars, or excuse me, the LH. And also the Plymouth Prowler, yep, use this basic engine right here with different intake and exhaust tuning, but that's it. Now we can see right here, plenty of extra room up front. Yep, the mighty 5.7 Hemi with 345 horsepower was certainly optional, but the very bottom of the barrel, there was a 2.7 liter V6 that was at the base. Now there was 3 versions of 300, the regular 300, and of course there's a 300 Touring, and then of course the C300 with the 5.7 Hemi. This is the mid-range vehicle, but again, this one's an all-wheel drive, pretty rare stuff. Now in total, there were 1.3 million Chargers built between 2005 and 2021 and still counting. So these have been very, very successful for Chrysler. And keep in mind, the 300 is the legacy car, the most expensive, a lot more Chargers. And the Magnums, of course, the wagons were sold for a little while. And of course, Challengers, like 600,000 Challengers exist on a platform that was started right here. Let's take a look inside. And this one is a 300 Limited, which was sort of the mid-range. And inside we can see a spiffy interior with leather surfaces. This one does have the 5-speed automatic with auto stick, which is to say it's kind of like the slapstick back in the day. You could slap it left and right and go, first, second, third, fourth, drive, and downshift even. That was the beauty of the auto stick. The funny thing is that the 2.7 liter V6, the little one, had a 4-speed automatic, whereas the 5-speed automatic here was reserved for the 3.5 and the 5.7. Now, what you never will see in a 300 or any of these vehicles is a manual transmission. Those were reserved strictly for Challenger applications. So again, there was no such thing as a Magnum or a Charger or a 300 with a manual transmission. But something you could get in Europe in these was a diesel engine, and in some countries there was even a station wagon version of the 300, which was based on the Magnum. Now we have this, of course, this is an all-wheel drive car. We see a lot more, as they call this, dead cat space, and of course that's what designers in Detroit call this. But you see the wheel here, that's all about the all-wheel drive car. It's about an inch taller than a standard 2-wheel drive or wheel drive version. And again, all-wheel drive 300s have an 18-inch wheel versus the 17s seen on 2-wheel drive V6 models. Another thing too is the gas tank right here. It's the same externally, but this one is an 18-gallon tank. If this was a 5.7 Hemi V8, it would have a 19-gallon tank. Now, speaking of designers in dead cat space, Joe Dehner, again, the head of advanced styling at Daimler Chrysler, he happens to be a car guy. Way back in 2003, in fact, specifically on October 14th, 2003, I was working at Hot Rod magazine, and I went to the Los Angeles Chrysler debut of the LX platform. I met Joe Dehner, and we got to be talking about model cars and stuff like that. That was the day that Chrysler announced to the world and the press, me at Hot Rod and Motor Trend and stuff like that, the Dodge and Challenger and Chrysler and Magnum, the LX platform was coming. So I'm sitting there in the audience, and there's Joe Dehner on the stage talking. Well, years later, in 2014 at the New York Auto Show, Joe Dehner and I start talking, and he loves models. He built this. This is basically a customized 61 DeSoto that Joe Dehner built and mailed to me. He put the Hemi in this thing. Now, ordinarily, these have like a 361, they're stock, but he turned this thing into a Gasser. So Joe Dehner, thank you for being a model enthusiast, a Gasser enthusiast, and being largely part of the design team who created these wonderful Mopars that we lust over today. Now, unfortunately, unlike a plastic model, this one does have some rust. You can see right here, this one's been in New England for a while, and yeah, it's starting to get acne, it's bubbling up, and it's more than just fender lip rust. We see down here the rockers also ready to go through. So even something as awesome as this mighty all-wheel drive 300 Limited, well, can succumb to rust. And it's kind of sad to think that this is the second model year, 2006, for the mighty LX rear-wheel drive Hemi dynasty. And yeah, it's succumbing to rust. That's why I was kind of try and shop for cars in Arizona or drier states. But with that said, still a lot of good parts on this one here. But again, this all-wheel drive platform right here took the already good rear-wheel drive stability in snow and took it to the max. And these cars were very popular in New England and any place a lot of rust or snow and ice fell. You wouldn't see these in LA so much. But again, if you see a new Challenger GT that sits a little tall, yep, this all-wheel drive system is under that car too, with a slightly shorter drive shaft. But again, that's the story here. Now, the funny thing about the all-wheel drive on these things, you won't find a switch in the dashboard. These basically have an intuitive automatic all-wheel drive system. There's no transfer case, not like a truck. You don't get out and hit the hubs. Rather, if you put the wipers on and it senses certain liquid, rain through the windshield and temperature conditions, you put the wipers on, it engages all-wheel drive. So it kind of knows if it's wet and snowy outside. You don't have to worry about turning anything on. That's kind of the weird thing because it comes on by itself. But with all-wheel drive, I had a Dodge Charger all-wheel drive a few years ago. It was a press loaner. I could drive that thing up snowy hills. It was just like a Jeep. Pretty cool, even with the all-season radial tires, no knobbies on the thing. So now this 300 all-wheel drive's days are probably over. And one final thing too, on the deck lid of this puppy is this little brag tag right here, all-wheel drive. So that's again how you know that you're riding behind one of these things that can pretty much climb a tree. And again, the 300 Touring, and again, the C300 Hemi car was also available with all-wheel drive for a number of years. But that's the story of this sad 2006 second model year Chrysler 300 rear-wheel drive, the beginning of the rear-wheel drive Hemi dynasty right here at Bernardston Auto Wrecking. Now, if you like this video, be sure to subscribe to the Steve Mags YouTube channel. There's plenty to come tomorrow morning.